Greetings and welcome. I do believe we are off the ground here. As you come on in, please open up the chat. And here we are, January 1st, which is 1:11 if you break it down into numerical, at 1:11 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:11 a.m. Mountain Time. That's a lot of ones. So as you come on in, please open up the chat and type a 1 or shoot an emoji. I love to see your emojis. And official greetings and welcome to SEM Mondays, my live weekly show here on YouTube, which typically is a combination of questions and answers and a group energy healing session as a way to be able to continue to support you on your journey, right, on your life journey during this health crisis, during this pandemic. So you may, if you've been following me for any length of time, you notice that I like to have themes to SEM Mondays, to the questions and answers part. And the themes usually come about by slews of questions that I get, right? Or questions that have a common thread. Milo, who does most of my tech support stuff, amazing young man, super passionate about source energy medicine. He helps me with email and answering the questions that he can. He does all of our live chat. He is brilliant. Like, one of his unique geniuses is taking hundreds of questions and finding similarity, right, to them. And that's often how we come up with the content for SEM Mondays. So you may already know that the theme for today is yes, I have props, and I'll try really hard not to hit my pop filter. But today's theme is indeed, I never use props. It's a little awkward and yet fun. Today's theme, just in case you're watching, not just listening, today's theme is going to be all about celery juicing, right? And very specifically, the 28-day celery juice cleanse that Anthony William started. And, I find it fascinating in that when I look at all of the questions that I receive, and, this has been going on for a couple of years. I think it was about 2 years ago that the whole celery juice thing became wildly popular, right, internationally. All of those questions, I think, can be boiled down into this summary, if you will. Is there something to this, right? Is it yet another kooky, crazy health fad, or is this, eternal healing wisdom for the ages? And I will do my best to not only answer that, but, one of the things that really bugged me was when I first heard about this. I gotta tell you, I heard about it from a friend who I would characterize as, he's not really interested in health and healing and well-being. He eats a standard American diet. I'm trying to be kind here, but when things like this start, usually colleagues and source energy medicine practitioners, right, the non-material aspect of source energy medicine, the energy healing component, like, some of our practitioners will ask me, did I know about it? What do I think about it? Things like that. And this first came from this person who I'm longtime friends with, who's not from within the source energy medicine community. So I thought it was odd. And I got to tell you, at first I completely discounted it as just another kooky, crazy, like insane health fad, maybe even something that's dangerous, because a lot of these health fads are. So when it first caught my attention, when I started getting, questions and comments and curiosities from colleagues, from other integrative wellness professionals, I caught my attention, and I did some research. And I got to tell you, there are videos on YouTube that have, one that comes to mind has over 8 million views. And she tells you to put water in it to get it to taste better. And, don't put water in it, right? If you watch, I get that a lot of the videos are intriguing because they're real people trying it on in real life, right? And I get there's value in that. But if you're going to do that and share it on YouTube, How about like reading Anthony Williams' books? How about watching his videos and learning how to do it right? And even if you're not going to go onto YouTube, one of the reasons why I'm going through this today is, 28 days, just time-wise, is a pretty big investment of time. It's a big commitment. It's something that's going to, when I have experimented with it, it changes my morning routine, right? There's no question about it. And there's a lot of do's and don'ts and things. So, I did my first liver cleanse probably in the very early 90s. And when I practiced nutrition in New York City, I coached a lot of groups, a lot of my coaching clients, either one-on-one or in groups through doing liver cleanses. An awful lot of people want to know, so within Source Energy Medicine, of course, we can transform, balance, and restore the liver, every organ and function and system. So why in the world would I want to do a liver cleanse? And I think it's a brilliant question, right? The reality is, I'll take me, for example. I eat impeccably well, what I would characterize as impeccably well. Like 99.9% of the food that I eat is organic. Most of it is homemade. And yet, and I do all of the things that seem to make sense to help to support my health and well-being, right? Source Energy Medicine does not replace eating well. And it certainly can change the way what happens in a liver cleanse. And yet, I currently living for the last 15 years or so, been living in Colorado, in the foothills of Colorado, and there certainly is pollution from Denver, right? Whole lot better than the 20 years I lived in New York City, and a whole lot better than, growing up in New Jersey. And yet, my point is, you could eat the cleanest diet on the planet, live in the most pristine environment, live in a home that is green built, right? It's not going to emit any VOCs, not drink alcohol or coffee or anything other than water and herbal teas, and yet you're still being exposed to toxins. And where do the toxins end up? In the liver. So I'm not so much going to compare and contrast doing a 28-day celery juice cleanse to what it would be like to explore Source Energy Medicine long term. I'm intrigued by that, and yet that's the level of sophistication, a conversation that gets to a sophistication that it's tough here in this forum. It's much more appropriate for the folks that are in our online workshops who are working towards achieving mastery of Source Energy Medicine. I hope that makes sense. So at minimum, what I want you to know, an awful lot of the questions are, will celery juicing interfere with Source Energy Medicine and vice versa? And, the short answer is no, it can't. Doing a celery juice cleanse can only enhance your healing experience, right? A lot of the chronic conditions that we see today are due to highly toxic liver, right? There are so many things that make their home in the liver, right? Viruses, unfriendly bacteria, parasites, toxic heavy metals, and on, chemicals. A lot of what you would consider, or what I would characterize as a residue, ends up in the liver. So even as clean a lifestyle as I live and have been eating what I would characterize as impeccably well for 20 plus years, I still think it's wise to cleanse my liver once, springtime is ideal, but I think I've been getting an awful lot of questions now because a lot of people choose sobriety for January, right? They do this dry January thing that has been going on the last few years. And I think in a lot of people's mind, if I'm going to stop drinking alcohol for a month, which on one hand is a great idea, right? It's absolutely a step in the right direction towards maybe taking a more serious look at alcohol and your relationship to it. But once I stop essentially poisoning my liver, killing my liver with alcohol, then I think a lot of people think, what else can I do? And I think a liver cleanse is brilliant, right? It's absolutely genius. And, you know, I don't want to leave you in the dangle here. To answer that question, is there something to this or not? There absolutely is something to this. There is no question about it. And of all of the, now retrospectively speaking, cleanses that I've done, many of which I would characterize as totally insane, really high level of risk, and I think low in terms of benefit or reward, the 28-day celery juice cleanse is simple, it's easy, it's relatively safe unless you have a really, really highly toxic liver. And then the worst thing that can happen is you have a healing reaction, right? You have flu-like symptoms and you feel lousy for a few days. And that to me is exciting, right? Because then feeling energized and well on the other side of that is in your horizon, right? So a lot of people are kind of offended by the taste of celery juice. And Michio Kushi, who brought the macrobiotic diet to the United States, he described our taste buds as being perverted, and they get perverted by predominantly artificial sweeteners, right? There are, like, sugar's horrible and should be illegal, but there are artificial sweeteners that are literally thousands of times sweeter than sugar, which makes even sugar no longer seem sweet, which makes a carrot seem no longer sweet. So if you juice celery, which to me, it's definitely salty and it's definitely a bitter taste, right? But I think it's kind of pleasant at the same time, right? It tastes like I'm cleaning, and I have consumed things in the name of cleaning that I'd rather drink gasoline, and I wouldn't drink gasoline. I don't suggest drinking gasoline. But comparatively speaking, like Woodroot tonic, for example, I wouldn't drink gasoline, of course. I'm trying to make a point here. But Woodroot tonic makes the idea of drinking gasoline seem like a better option, right? So it's crazy. Celery juice, I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I'm having my celery juice shortly thereafter when I'm doing a 28-day cleanse, which I'm doing. I'm I don't know, maybe 7 days or so into it. The very first time I tried it, certainly an odd taste because I'm used to juicing dark leafy greens, and I'll put apple and ginger and lemon in there to make it just totally yummy and delicious. And with this, you don't want to add anything. And that's what not everyone, but an awful lot of these people on YouTube are doing. And I know there's a lot of people at home are doing it because some of my friends whose young adult children have done it, that they were doing that. They were putting lemon, they were adding water, they were putting apple. Don't do that. Like the miracles, literally the miracles that lie in celery has to do with what Anthony William describes as these cluster salts, right? They've yet to be identified by science, and literally the miracle is in these cluster salts. So if you add water, you're diluting and in some cases really impairing or destroying the cluster salts to the point where you're not going to get any beneficial gain from it, right? So there too, some of the videos that I watched on YouTube, these are people, I don't think they've ever eaten anything to support their health and well-being. And the reason why I say that is because if you have for any length of time, you've eaten some nasty stuff, right? There's no, all in the sake of health, there's no other way of watering that down, right? That's something that you can water down. And in the sake of health and well-being and healing, I have eaten, consumed, drank stuff that is just god-awful to even think about, right? So comparatively speaking, celery juice is like eating, it's like the dessert of the juice world, right? Whereas there's some juices that are really, really tough to swallow, right? So celery juice to me is like kids play especially compared to something like Woodroot tonic, which, my God, I don't even remember. I remember it was part of a cleanse. I believe it was a liver cleanse, but that was back in the late 80s or early 90s when I was beginning to learn all about all of this stuff. And I would, so that's enough about wood root tonic. But God, if anyone is watching this either live or in replay, if you've ever consumed wood root tonic, just share something in the chat there, and let me know, because I'm sure there's probably somebody on this planet who actually thinks it's a good thing. It's foul at best. So. Yeah, so celery juicing cannot interfere with source energy medicine. And if you really think about it, if you watch Anthony William, the videos that Anthony William produced, and he has amazing content creators, like his content is amazing. He has a brilliant team. He has an entire book just on celery juice. And, you don't have to buy the book. He has enough free content on YouTube. And on his website, that's really all you need. But the essence of it is you drink 16 to 32 ounces of celery juice very, very, very first thing in the morning. So, and then nothing for 2 hours is ideal, right? And then, so if you think about source energy medicine, you're not drinking water in there, so you're not drinking source energy medicine in there. So source energy medicine can interfere with celery juice. And celery juice cleansing your liver is going to, I think in an ideal world, 60 to 90 days of source energy medicine and then do a celery juice cleanse would be absolutely ideal, right? Because then there'd be less to cleanse. And if you're totally, if you're totally new to source energy medicine, it might be something to consider. But if you have a serious health concern, and here's like something that you have to be very, very sensitive with. Cleansing while you're seriously ill can be really risky. So there's no question about it. And yet doing like a 28-day celery juice cleanse, or even better, doing Anthony, the one of the cleanses that Anthony has in his book, one of his books, is called the 369 cleanse, and the 369 cleanse is just absolutely brilliant. And I think anyone who has a really serious health crisis doing a 369 cleanse, especially with someone who is like expert in that cleanse, right, as a professional to help to guide you. But there are millions of people who have done the 369 cleanse simply by following the direction really, really, really well outlined in his book. I believe it's the Healing with Whole Foods, or Foods That Heal. He has two that are essentially about healing with foods, and I can reference them in the show notes below. I don't benefit at all from you buying his book, so I'm not promoting Anthony William in terms of being a joint venture partner or anything. But I do, I'm a huge fan, absolutely huge fan, mostly because where the information comes from. And if you don't understand how it is that Anthony William came to be, what he characterized in his books are published under medical medium, in his very first book, which is titled Medical Medium, and it has the cover is bluish, and it has a chest x-ray on it. That's the most in-depth version of his story that I've ever read, and it is absolutely, it's very moving, it's very touching, it's very compelling. He was not praying to God to have a non-physical being start to speak to him when he was 4 years old to help people to heal themselves, and yet that's what happened. And he fought it, he tried to resist it, he tried to shut it off, and it's a very, very compelling story. One of the things that I'm ultra sensitive to is, when I look at fad, like what's the source of the fad? And if you really study Anthony William, especially if you just read his story, and if you read any in-depth chapters of his book, what you will learn is beyond what you will learn in any other book, right? It is absolutely eternal healing wisdom for the ages. And it is a non-physical being who started educating him when he was 4 years old, identifies himself as the spirit of compassion, and it enables him to do things that there's no other human on this planet can do. He's literally in that level of all by himself, right? And it's not him, it's not the man, it's not, I mean, he's awesome, I think, in so many ways, and I admire his strength and his courage because talk about a burden to carry. And, you know, he writes about this a bit in some of his books. You know, Spirit of Compassion was very, very concerned that Anthony would kill himself because others have who were in the training process to do the work that Anthony has been doing magnificently for, 25 plus years. It's kind of hard to put a timeline on it, but I'm not talking about from the time he was 4, but from the time he was in his young adulthood and he committed to helping people on their healing journey at least 25 years ago. So, you know, a lot of the thing that really is unsettling to me is a lot of these videos on YouTube are people who don't bother researching the guy, and yet they say he's a sketchy resource. And I get that to a lot of people, having the spirit of compassion give them information is odd, right? How else could you put it? Unless you're used to communicating with angels, or you see angels, or you have a really deep, profound connection with your higher self. So I get to a lot of people, especially Main Street people, or ultra-conservative religious people. They would think, you know, having the spirit of compassion speaking in his right ear, that's got to be the work of the devil. And yet, if you would take it one step further and actually take time and read, educate yourself about the information that he is sharing the root cause of dis-ease that the medical profession has no explanation for, like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's, dementia, so many things, even diabetes, so many health concerns that plague our global population, right? He shares information that you will not find if you go to medical school. You won't find in any medical textbooks. You won't find medical professionals talking about this unless they're a medical medium friendly healthcare provider, which there are. And I think there are a lot of functional medicine physicians who know about Anthony and his, really substantial body of work, and they have mastered his teachings, really, right? So, the only person that I ever heard of who comes even remotely close, and my harsh judgment comes nowhere close to what Anthony is doing, would be Edgar Cayce. And Edgar Cayce's life and what he contributed to humanity is monumental, right? There's no question about it. So I have the utmost respect for Anthony, there is absolutely so much. His books are just filled with gold and platinum and gemstones that you won't find anywhere. There's no question about it. Source energy medicine does not replace, well, first and foremost, it doesn't replace common sense, right? So, taking source energy medicine and drinking alcohol, and using source energy medicine to help to counter the negative effect of that, no. And yes, we do have a T20 is transformation alcohol, but it's really for those who are choosing sobriety and wanting to help to transform, balance, and restore the damage that alcohol creates, right? It destroys your body from the cells on up, right? Which means cells and in organs and functions and systems, right? Not just the liver, not just the brain, but, everything. So, using source energy medicine or abusing source energy medicine to continue to eat poorly and not exercise and not clean up relationships and not be kind and gentle and gracious human being, like that's like, I think, the closest thing to sin as we can get. And by sin, I mean, sin is an archery term that means to miss the mark, right? It absolutely is missing the mark of source energy medicine. And, I've heard countless times that people who have tried to change their diet before source energy medicine unsuccessfully, sometimes for 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years, once they start source energy medicine, and very specifically, what I now know is once they transform the subconscious mind, then they're finally able to make choices, better choices, with regards to food and exercise and lifestyle, right? Some people have been struggling with addiction who are finally able to stop, right? And finally able to start eating well, start loving themselves in that way. So I think it's a fascinating thing to think about. So yes, absolutely, source energy medicine in conjunction with eating, exercising, sleeping well. Sleep is so critical, right? And have been historically, even in these last few years, I'm always pushing, I'm always curious, like how little sleep do I need and still be able to thrive? Like where's no longer thriving? It always like can I get an extra hour out of this day? I'm a huge fan of Ogmandino, and one of Ogmandino's scrolls is I'm going to live this day as if it's my last. And if it's my last, I really do want to use every single moment as it's like an undeserved bonus that I have been given, right? That God gave me these moments, these days. And if they are a gift from the divine, if they are a gift from the source of all creation, then I want to know how God wants me to use them, right? Not what I think I should do if this is my last day. And Og isn't talking about living like it's your last day and just like blowing all your money and having as much sex and drugs and alcohol consumption as you possibly can. That's not it at all. But if I don't put off till tomorrow what I can do today, that's where like those extra hours, either early in the morning, which I don't get up earlier than 5. 5 is it's like my sweet spot. And yet, I do really, 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 really well on about 6.5 hours sleep, a little less, and then I stop thriving unless it's just one night, right? 7 hours, and I am like so refreshed, so great. And yet my sleep is so good, and I require so little, in part because of source energy medicine, but it's also a huge part because I eat so well, right? And, absolutely doing a 28-day celery juice cleanse a couple of times a year, I think is just absolutely a brilliant way to support you with your health and well-being, help to ensure, there's so much talk about longevity these days, and I'm only interested in longevity if I am, if I'm able to maintain a very high level of physical fitness, mental clarity, physical energy, passion, excitement. I have a long list of things that I would love to embark upon in this lifetime. Some documentary films that have been kind of on the back burner. Just a lot of things, right? I have a couple of books that I've written that are yet to be published. There are two, they're ready, and I'm going to self-publish them. It's just, it's just the time thing. So less sleep, I think, would be great. And I don't know that, if I've been at my ideal energy level long enough, if that will require less, right? And there's a lot of different things that I've tried, sleeping in spurts and stuff, but, getting 7 hours sleep, getting up at 5 a.m. and having a very fixed routine, which these days, first thing is, 32 ounces of celery juice. So I hope that once and for all answers all of the questions about it. Anthony William, he has amazing resources that are available. Outside of buying his books, I've yet to see anything that he charges for. Just a beautiful soul, really committed and passionately committed to helping us. So until you read his entire backstory, I strongly encourage you not to make harsh judgments about the source, right? And at least be open-minded enough to check it out. And, since you're here, we're talking about taking water and structuring and charging the water molecules and turning it into something that would, that creates an energy medicine, a source energy medicine. You are really the ideal people to learn about Anthony Williams' backstory and really appreciate the knowledge that he shares. It absolutely is eternal wisdom for the ages. So, thank you for, there's Luis, thank you, awesome, welcome to Awesome to have you here. Welcome. And Marty, thank you. And thank you for all the beautiful emojis, and Susie and Barbara Ann and Deb and Ada, Fifth Wheel. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, and thank you, Barbara Ann, for your comment. Yes, researching first is a good idea. I'm, especially depending on where the suggestion comes from. Like that suggestion, the very first suggestion was almost like someone trying to give me financial advice, like unsolicited financial advice from someone who's going through bankruptcy, right? Not the best person to be, unless, Tony Robbins, one of his very early mentors, Jim Rohn, one of the biggest lessons that Tony learned from Jim was that success leaves clues, right? And I took that, I don't know, 20 plus years ago, that teaching 20 plus years ago, and I think also failure. I can learn so much from other people's failures. One of the reasons why I love James Altucher and his work, because, on one hand, he is absolutely like IQ wise from his intelligence quotient, I guess it is, right? IQ. He's genius, right? And yet, on the other hand, when it comes to common sense and kind of street smarts, he's like the slowest guy on the planet. And he has amassed 15 or more $1 million and lost it numerous times. Like it's hard to put the timeline together there too, but 8 times or more he's gone from a net worth of 15 or more $1 million down to one story that he quotes the most is $146 in his, when he goes to the ATM. That's harsh. And I love James because he teaches like both sides of the coin, right? How did I get that kind of financial success, and how did I lose it? What was I doing that lost it? He has a couple of books out, but his book, Choose Yourself, I absolutely love. And he has a wildly popular podcast, one of the most popular podcasts out there. And he interviews a lot of people because he is absolutely a lifelong student of learning. And, I don't want to go down that tangent, but, I love learning from both other people's successes. And if I really study other people's failures, which not everyone is willing to talk about, and it's one of the things I admire the most about James, I find a lot of inspiration, and if he can save me a heartache and pain and suffering, sign me up, So thank you, James. He's an awesome guy. There's actually a series that I watched on Amazon Prime, but I'm sure it streams other ways. And I believe it's the same title as his book, Choose Yourself, James Altucher. So, and there too, I'm not promoting James. He's just an awesome guy. So, I'd like to transition now into the group energy healing portion of SEM Mondays. And there's a couple of things that's really important for you to know in case you're totally new to. So if you are new to Source Energy Medicine, if you're new to SEM Mondays, just type something in the chat, whether you're watching this new or if you're watching this in replay years from now, just type that you're new. I always like to see who's new and how many folks are new. There's a couple of things that are really important for you to know about the energy healing component. First of all, it's called the non-material aspect of Source Energy Medicine, and it's called that because there's no charging labels, there's no water, and there's no bottles, right? So no material substance. It's simply energy, and it's it's the same technology grossly expanded in that there's a lot of freedom and flexibility that we have in the energy work that we can't do with the charging labels, like traveling back in time and doing the transformation, balance, and restoration at some time in the linear past of your this particular lifeline. Sometimes we go all the way back to when you were in utero, and that helps to absolutely speed the overall process, right? Depending on how old you are, if the challenge that you're experiencing started when you were in utero and we worked in this moment, in this time space reality, it would be completely inefficient and 100 times more work than if we were able to energetically roll back in time. Einstein theorized that all time is happening simultaneously. And if I learned nothing from the non-material aspect of source energy medicine other than to help me with linear time, he was absolutely right. He was not able to prove it mathematically, but he was absolutely right that all time is somehow happening now. It's somehow stacked on top of each other is what he believed, as if, and yet it's in different planes of reality that we don't always have access to. We do have access to that when we sleep. So, or if we are in either deep meditation or a deep hypnotic state. But nonetheless, this work is the energy work is much faster than our charging label technology, not just because we can energetically time travel, but there are a lot of things. We're literally uploading, downloading, installing the technology into every aspect of your being. And in these group sessions that I have been offering, I think we started late April, right once this pandemic really started to affect us globally. My intention, what I focus on when I do a group session, which is very different when I do work one-on-one, right? There's a lot of things that I can do one-on-one that I can't do in a group. I wish I could, and we just can't. And there's a lot of technical stuff that I would have to explain, and I don't want to bore you, but just please know that these mini group sessions that I do every SEM Mondays, God willing, I certainly have been, every one since late April, I believe, is very specifically focused on the things that are most important to your physical health and well-being, right? So it's not a complete session. If you were to work with one of our practitioners, you'd be able to do significantly more work with that practitioner than what we're able to do here. And yet, what we're able to do here, I'm able to support you with the most critical factors that help to ensure your physical health and well-being. You don't need to understand the technology. You don't need to understand all of the ins and outs. So I think it's important for you to know that whether you're watching this live or in replay, the potential is equally the same, and there's absolutely additional benefit to either watching this same SEM Mondays and just fast forwarding to the energy healing part and experiencing it again. There are countless people that I've heard from in our community since last April who that's part of their self-healing, their daily self-healing. Once or twice, some people 3 times a day. People have very high-stress lives are carving out that time. It's only 5 or 7 minutes, and allowing themselves that to me is like a lot of people think, it's a selfish act. It's the most selfless act, right? Think about every time you fly in an airplane, they tell you if the oxygen masks drop, put it first on your mouth before you help an infant or a child or an elderly person sitting next to you. Why? Because you're going to be no good if you don't have air, right? And it's the same logic, right? If you're working 70 or 80-hour work weeks to try and make ends meet these days, if you don't start carving out 10, 15, 20 minutes here and there in your schedule, you're going to burn out. You're absolutely going to end up with likely greater illness than COVID-19, right? You're going to likely end up with more long-term serious challenges. So be kind and gracious and gentle with yourself, and really, I'm very, very selfish when it comes to self-care, right? There's a lot of things on my schedule that are not negotiable, right? Unless there's an emergency that is so far beyond my control. And then it's just like things get reshuffled, right? Like stuff doesn't go out the window just because I'm busy. And if they did, like I would not have worked out these last 10 years, right? Especially these last several years where transitioned to doing all our workshops online. A learning curve I could not see coming, and yet, it's what it is, and I'm grateful that most of the learning is in my distant past. So, on your end, just, and it's not just, right, but on your end, as much as possible, relax and receive and allow, which is all ways for me to say, just love yourself, right? Just allow this energy to love you. It's very, very important for you to realize that especially, within every aspect of source energy medicine, this is especially true with the non-material aspect of source energy medicine, it's essential to shine the light on the fact that you are always healing yourself. Always, always, always. It might look like I'm facilitating, and yes, there's stuff that I'm doing, there's technical stuff that I'm doing, but in every case, you set the pace, right? You set the depth, you set the speed and the tempo, and it's up to you. And what are the things that affect all of that? There's a lot, right? So it's really resistance and allowance, conscious, unconscious, and subconscious. So the subconscious is the realm of source energy medicine. The unconscious and the conscious is up to you, right? To just consciously allow, believe that you are worthy, know that you are worthy, and simply allow. A lot of people like to lie down and close their eyes when experiencing this, and if that's comfortable and appropriate and safe for you, then please try that on and see how it goes. And if you're driving or something, just, please here to use common sense. Like, don't do those things. If you're flying an airplane, schedule time later and come on back to our channel on YouTube and watch the replay. And, I sort of half joke about that, and yet, there have been times when I've been listening to stuff and there's a guided meditation and I just listen to it, and it's like not a good idea, right? Like, pay attention to the road. Don't multitask, solo task or no task. In this case, your no task is to simply relax and receive and allow. So I turn off my camera, so what I'm doing is not distracting. There will be chanting playing in the background. It's eternal Om. It has nothing to do with the work. It's simply to let you know that we're still broadcasting, and it's very relaxing, right? It is absolutely a magnificent piece, Dick Sutton, and it's I believe it's healing in itself, and yet it has nothing to do with source energy medicine per se. So I'm going to go ahead and get things set up on my side. On your side, I always encourage you, I always invite you to choose a single goal or a single challenge. And why one? Because if you have 4 or 5 of each, then it's really hard to track progress, right? I'm always, always, always most interested in measurable results. So if you want to work on everything all at once, which is what we're doing with charging labels, and very often people think there's nothing happening because the charging label technology, drinking source energy medicine, very intentionally works very subtly, very gracefully, and almost like way in the background, right? So no drama, no catharsis, no reliving emotional trauma, or no chance of re-stimulating past wounds or hurts, especially when we're working on the emotional body or on the soul level. So get on your end, think about what it is that you would like to receive in terms of working on a goal or a challenge. And just know that when you come back and watch this again or watch any of the other replays from SEM Mondays, just know you can pick a different goal and a different challenge and use that as your intention for that one. So I'm going to go ahead and get things set up on my end. And when I come back, right before I come on back, I'll check the chat thread and see if there are any questions that have come in that are either related to celery juice cleanse and that whole conversation, or any questions in general. And then we will wrap things up for today. And God willing, I'll see you back here next Monday at our regular time. So I invite you to get nice and comfortable and think about what that one thing is that you would like to receive, what that one thing is that you would like to experience. And as you gain clarity on that, start to see it the way the source of all creation sees it, right? Divine infinite intelligence, that same energy that controls the seasons and the sun rising and the breathing of your lungs and the beating of your heart. Try and see it the way the source of all creation sees it, which I firmly believe is as simply, if it's a challenge, it is simply miscreated energy. Right? It's energy that is not calibrated high enough to be able to help you, to support you. Therefore, it creates challenge or imbalance or lack, oftentimes dis-ease. But to the source of all creation, the source of all creation can see the perfection in it. It can see the fastest way to transformation. It knows there is no order of difficulty when it comes to healing. There's no order of difficulty when it comes to miracles, because it is always the source of all creation that is doing all of the healing, always, and anything else is an egoic illusion. The only thing you need to do is to allow, to trust, and to receive. And miscreation and miracles are equally easy to both manifest and to overcome. Not overcoming the miracles, but certainly overcoming the miscreation, the challenge, the dis-ease, because it's simply energy that was human miscreation, not divine. If it was divine, it wouldn't be a challenge. And that's the essence of source energy medicine, transforming everything that is not divine into the divine. The ego wants you to see the wounds and the dis-ease and the imbalance and focus on what's missing, what's lacking, the difficulty, the challenge. And that will simply perpetuate more of that. By focusing on anything to be grateful for, anything that is working, even if it's just a matter of your heart is working, and it might only be working at 10% of optimum level, it's still beating. And that 90% improvement is so well within your reach. What is yet to be realized, manifest, and measurable is unfolding for you quickly, under grace, in divine and miraculous ways. And as you relax into this energy healing session, I invite you to give thanks for the divine orchestration that brought you here today. It's not an accident. It is an absolute synchronicity, if not an absolute miracle. We are each a miracle, and miracles are our birthright. We should experience miracles every day, and when I am not, I am the one that's responsible. I am the one that is blocking it some way. Usually it's unconscious or subconscious. Sometimes it's conscious. I'm making conscious choices that are not serving me, not serving my health or well-being or the financial aspect of my life or my relationships or my career. We each have free will, and oftentimes that free will is our greatest enemy, because we're consciously making choices that do not serve us. And yet, once the subconscious mind is completely transformed, balanced, and restored, then and only then do I have greater ability to make more wise, conscious choices consistently, all day, every day. Only then can I truly and deeply and profoundly accept myself unconditionally and begin the process of learning how to love myself. Not from an egoic place, but from the perspective of the source of all creation. The source of all creation loves you, loves what it would be characterized as your soul so much that it created you, and then loves you so much that it put you in this human form for a reason. You are here for something unique that no other human on this planet can come close to. You have your own unique genius, your own divine gifts, your own divine talents. And for most of us, it takes years and years and years to come to that realization, to come to the understanding that I am an idea in the mind of the source of all creation. The source of all creation is love. Therefore, I am loving thought. and everything else is simply illusion. Everything else is a lie. Everything else takes me off of my path, which otherwise would lead me back home to what would be characterized as heaven or the Garden of Eden, where there is abundant sufficiency, peace, well-being, and nothing but love. Breathe into that and know that that is your birthright. That is what you've come here to find. That's what you've come here to remember. To know, to be. Continue to breathe comfortably as the session continues. And when the work is done, I will come back and invite you to take a nice deep breath, and then we will continue from there. I invite you to take a nice deep breath and slowly and gently wiggle your fingers and toes. Continue to breathe comfortably. Continue to allow and continue to receive this work as it continues to unfold for you. I think it's important for you to know, to realize, to understand that even though this work is phenomenally compact in a very few moments of linear time, this work will continue to literally be uploaded, downloaded, and installed into every aspect of your being, likely for hours to come. So continuing to know that, continuing to breathe into that, continuing to receive, you will continue to be able to receive more, right? More blessings and potentially more miracles, more gifts, and it will unfold for you in your own unique way, which I always see as quickly under grace in divine and miraculous ways. Certainly inspired by Florence Scovel Shinn, and I think it's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful way to qualify that which I am intending. So I don't see any questions in the chat that had anything to do with the celery juice cleanse, so I do indeed hope that once and for all that answers all of the questions about celery juicing. And Anthony William, God bless you, his 28-day celery juice cleanse. If you have not tried it, you got to check it out. Go to his YouTube channel, go to his website. I know he's transitioning over to other platforms. TikTok, I think, is what his team is experimenting with these days. YouTube tends to censor him pretty heavily and certainly doesn't promote any of his videos, which is unsettling to say the least. And yet, his books, such a gift to each of us, to humanity, just filled with gemstones and huge nuggets of gold and platinum, and just like so much good stuff. So I hope this has been helpful. God willing, I will see you back here next Monday at our regular scheduled time. Between now and then, just really be gentle with yourself, especially, after experiencing a group energy healing session like that. Just honor the healing process, right? And be gentle with yourself. And as much as possible, be kind and compassionate and polite and tolerant of others. We are living in times that, on one hand, have never been more unsettling and uncertain. It tests, right? It tests our character. It tests our compassion. It tests, what's my threshold for tolerance and compassion and for unconditional love. And I think for many of us, that threshold has been crossed so many times over this last year. 2020 was such a challenging time for most of us. And yet there's still so many things, social unrest, political unrest, economic uncertainty, and economic injustice. And, so please be kind, please be gentle, please be gracious. We are, at least energetically and consciously, all one. So, love your neighbor as yourself. I think is a good goal, but it does indeed require first loving yourself. So start there. As always, as much as I love our time together, it's like I could stand here all day and talk about source energy medicine, and yet I want to be very respectful of your time. And look at that, it's 12:12 here. Started at 11:11. I'll take that as a clue to keep moving here. As always, I wish you continued blessings on your journey with source energy medicine. God willing, I'll see you back here next Monday. Bye for now.